Hi, Kristen. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all the things. I'm good, and I feel like we're in like a new phase of parenting. The twins and Guster. So
I know it happens so quick. Like they're going to be 11, right?
hmm
11, 12, 13. Now
it's
you're
like
like in the middle school years ish.
yeah. So it's like I didn't know it, but I like just got on a ride, like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, you
It's
didn't
like,
buy a
wait, what?
ticket.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was standing in line, but then like I'm just in. Like someone buckled me in, and then they're like, "You're on this ride, and I don't know when it ends, or like what's going on."
I know. Because are the twins in fifth?
Fourth grade.
They're in fourth. Yeah.
hmm
You're not in the middle school world with them yet, but they're kind of coming into their own in like the early stages of adolescence.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we opened that door into adolescence, and all of a sudden, the movies Inside Out, those have been really helpful. So I just think about all the buildings are crumbling, and like the other things are coming in to like do construction, and
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
lot.
In adolescence, I always think of it, it's like their brains are building a second story,
hmm
but the ladders aren't built yet, or like there's a couple of rungs missing. And so they're trying to access that like executive functioning piece more. And yeah,
hmm
we could talk about that all day.
I know you could. Yeah,
The pruning process. I know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm in the thick of that, and that's a little wild.
Yeah, on the podcast in a couple of episodes, I'm having these women on that I've told you about the girls mentorship program.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I had invited them to talk about this age, like what is middle school girls, like what's going on inside of them? What do they need? What makes them tick? What are their struggles? And then how can we support them? So I'm really looking forward to that episode.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So today's a confessions though.
Yes.
Yeah,
Darlene's Confessions.
it's like you're the priest or something.
I'll be that.
No, so this came up because, I'm doing this How to Heal series
hmm
and I've done four of the episodes and we did one where we talked about self-love and that kind of
Right.
introduced it. And I've had a few clients that are in my programs, like in my one-on-one or in the club. And, they're like, oh, these episodes are so good, and they're like re-listening to them and really getting a lot out of them. And then they're like, but like, how did you figure this all out? How did you do this? When did this happen for you? And they're asking me a lot of questions about kind of my backstory or when I did all this work. And I
hmm
thought it might be interesting to talk about it.
Yeah. I've never heard this either, so I really want to know.
Yeah, it's good.
hmm
Um, well, and I was like realizing, so I wrote this thing one time about how healing to me is like trauma diving. It's like, the first time you go scuba diving or whatever, it's like you've never done it before and it's like really scary and stuff. And you have to like get your gear on and you gotta get, I mean, obviously get trained in it and stuff. And then you go down and then you start exploring, you start digging and you can stay down, and you have to come up slowly. And I think about healing a little bit like that. Like the first time I dove into my back, my trauma, my pain, any of that, all those wounds, I didn't know what I was going to find. It's like
hmm
you just on the boat, and you just like put your arms across your chest, like they show on TV, and then you just like lean back, and then you're like in the water. And, you're not going to die because you have your air and you have people around you. And so
Right.
it's scary, but it's safe.
hmm
And you go and you just kind of dig around a little bit and see what's there. And I think the the process of, trusting, like radical trust is really pivotal because it's so scary to take a look at your pain and then
Right.
being really honest, being really like really listening to yourself and kind
hmm
of being open to seeing what's there
Right.
and what makes one do it. Well, I was going to say about the diving. So, like the first time you're like, and then you get better at it. I think there's been times where I'm like in a diving period of my life where I'm just like every day going down to the same reef, kind of exploring it, checking it out, what's still here, what's there, what's not. And when I think about my own journey, I've like trauma dived a few times and well, many times actually at this point, but the first time was really scary. And then I got better at it and I
Mhm.
knew what to expect. And I didn't feel like I was going to drown or die because I knew
Right.
I could just tug and come up to the top. And even when I've been working with you, I did a lot of work around my eating disorder while we were working together. And I hadn't really done that much work on that, like the way I did it this
Yeah.
last time. And it was, kind of intense for like maybe 8 weeks, 10 weeks. I was in it a lot and then I was out of it again. And that's
Mhm.
what I've learned about healing is that it's not this I don't think our nervous systems can handle tackling all this stuff at one time. It's like you go for a diving session, you're there, you do it, whatever that looks like. And then you kind of get to a new place. You're like, okay, good. It's not that season again.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's maybe you're intuitively led to check something out, but you're not going to like explore the entire ocean bottom, you know?
Hmm.
Like you're just
Hmm.
going to maybe stay in a small area or just do it a few times and then, you feel a little bit better and then you move on for a while.
Hmm. Yeah.
You feel called to revisit it again.
Yeah. I think that is confusing for someone who's approaching healing, where they're like my ACEs score, right? We talked about on the pod, but it's like 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. Sometimes I can't remember. So then that would be adverse child experiences, 8 or 9 adverse child experiences. So I'm going to have to do some deep diving around 9 different wounds just from childhood. Now, not everybody has childhood wounds. I think we have a lot of social wounds, like just being humans in the world. I think we get hurt.
Right.
I think patriarchy, racism, like all of these things do a number on us. We just our personalities, like we all have wounds, but if you have trauma, you could be like, well, start there, or you start with something easy. I don't know, like working on your money, which could be not easy to some people. Yeah, I love that. You're not exploring the whole bottom, the whole ocean bottom at
Hmm.
once, just a little section of reef.
Yeah. It's a good
Uh-huh.
analogy too because it feels like you're going to die because you're not supposed to be underwater for that long. So like cognitively you're just like no, this does not make sense. This is not good. This is not safe. But you are safe. You will be okay and it will be okay as long as you've prepared yourself, like you
Yeah, and have some
are.
things. And I think, if you're going to do some healing work, it might be a good idea to do it with somebody first, right? Like when you go become scuba, you don't scuba dive, you have to first get certified.
Hmm.
And that's probably really important to talk to a therapist or a highly skilled coach, right?
Right.
Like really thinking about, well, just do your research if you're going to hire somebody.
Correct.
Yeah, because not
Yep.
all therapists are great, not all coaches are great, not all
Correct.
programs fit each person. Like we've talked about that a lot ourselves, like how we have to find
Hmm.
the right voices for us, and then those are also only for a season sometimes.
Hmm. Yep. The right people for the right time.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
and like they always say, when you're ready, when the student is ready, the teacher will come.
Yep.
Hmm. And I do think, like, if you've stumbled across my podcast and it feels like everything I'm saying is for you, well, I'm probably
Yep.
the coach for you.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
So I was thinking about like the first time I did trauma diving, and it really was for me, and I've never really talked about this. So it's a little odd to start here because I haven't talked about the podcast. I don't talk about it really much. But the time for me was when I was in college and I stopped drinking.
Mm.
And I don't think of myself as a person who like got sober because I recreationally drink now and have like since I was around 30. But prior to that, I had like a really bad relationship with drugs and alcohol and had to stop and be in an abstinence for a long period of time. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have any like initial questions or I just go for it.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 20 when this
Okay.
happened. I was 1995. And I remember the beginning of that year, January of 95, creating a theme. I've always created themes. I've also have always been like this. Like a reflective person, kind of a thinker, I don't know, overthinking things, probably looking for meaning, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I've probably always been a life coach in my heart.
Right.
But I remember making this theme of I'm alive in 95,
Mm.
which I did not sort of get sober. I don't even know if that's the right language, but it's the language we would use to describe what happened until April. But I must have been feeling dead or something
Yeah.
because I was
Because what did
using.
that mean to you? I'm alive in 95.
um, I think it meant that I was going to get freer or something, like be healthier, happier, whole. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if I knew I was a mess yet. But like in AA, they're like my life had become unmanageable, and that's the phrase that then you kind of that's when you recognize you need help. And I don't know how much, like I didn't know at that time that my life was unmanageable.
Yeah. So you had some kind of emotional pain that you were
Yeah,
feeling that was like the catalyst for
yeah,
this new idea,
yeah. Because I was a
95.
sophomore in college, and I was living in San Diego at the time, and had a roommate, and I lived like in a very party area of San Diego. I lived in Mission Beach, if anyone knows that area. Um, I lived on Jamaica Court, like it's like heart
Mm.
of this area. And yeah, we just got drunk and stoned all the time, like all the time. And I was so unhappy with my home life. Like I just didn't ever want to think about it. I remember thinking at that time, like, I should just move to Hawaii and never talk to my family again. Like I was trying to figure out how to get out of my life with them. I don't know. There's so much dysfunction. I wanted to like be free, and being in college wasn't enough. I wasn't far enough away from it all to
Yeah.
like not let it bother me or penetrate. So I started I was trying to think about it. I was like, what was that journey for me like with drugs and alcohol? So I started doing, the first time I got drunk, I was in 10th grade. And I was trying to remember the circumstances. It might have been late 10th grade. Um, and, you do, like people do, they get drunk in high school. And I don't think that alcohol was like that much of a, I don't know. I did do a lot of drinking though. I was not like, oh, I'm gonna just drink. I was like drunk, drunk, and then promiscuous and blackout, not knowing where I was. And I'm like 15, just really unsafe. But obviously, my childhood, no adult cared. No one knew where I was or anything about what was going on.
Mm.
Um, so a lot of unsafe circumstances, like a lot of unsafe circumstances. And I don't know. It was just, I think I was kind of living two lives at that time because I was also going to church
Mm.
and drinking. And I don't think I had not smoked weed yet. I just was drinking.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, but then I just was like, yeah, drinking a lot. And then this thing happened with my family. And I was trying to remember like what the exact circumstances were, but I got in a fight at this terrible stepdad. He was really cruel to me and really cruel to my mom. He was an alcoholic. And we had this big fight. It was really mean. I left my house and I lived like there was a park across the street. And then across the park was this church that I was going to, like I had a youth group and everything. And I tried to reach out to there was no cell phones. This was like 1990 or something, 91. And I went to the woman's apartment, like the teen youth group leader.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I did get a hold of her somehow. I don't remember how. And she's like, I'm busy tonight, which she's entitled to be busy.
Right.
But I felt so personally abandoned by everybody and everything and my faith and religion and my family. I remember like deciding like fuck this. I'm out.
Mm. And this was in high school
Yeah.
when you were like, yeah.
Mhm. Like right around 15, 16 years old. And yeah, I just
Mm.
my life was like completely crazy. I mean, it was also crazy. My mom kicked me out. I couch surfed for a year. It was not normal, but I was a cheerleader. So in high school, I would like be normal and like wear my cheerleading uniform and then try to figure out whose house I was going to sleep at that night. Like live with my boyfriend's parents, live with my friends. It was not good.
Oh, you're like this highly functional um, homeless child.
Yeah. That's an insane thing to
That is
talk about.
so, yeah, yeah. The
Hmm.
capacity you must have had to build to be able to manage, like, survive like that.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure I don't know anyone from high school anymore, but I'm sure I was not performing as well as I thought I was.
I mean, you got
Um,
dressed and went to school and
yeah. But I was like trying to
participated.
be like in the popular group or whatever. I was just such a disaster. I don't even know.
Mm.
Um, and then that probably lack of integrity. I don't know that like I don't. It just made me want to escape more and more. So
Mm.
I did. I escaped in boys and drugs and alcohol and school a little bit and work, a job. I just anything I could do to get away from my family and away from the pain. And I spent a lot of years doing that. And it escalated. And I started doing drugs, hard drugs. Um, when I graduated from high school, I was like, okay, no more drugs, only stuff from the earth. I remember making a commitment.
The upgrade.
Yeah, I was like, only like weed and mushrooms and alcohol, like no more hard drugs.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
and then I was in spring break. We were in Mexico, a big group of girls, and I just was really out of it that week. I was like drunk a lot, but also alone a lot. Like I kept getting separated from my roommate and the group that I was with, and I just really, really unsafe, but also just very alone, like really out of it and alone and just in this like in Mexico. I don't know. I have very little memory of it except walking the beach by myself, super wasted.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Mm.
So I got home and it was spring break. And so it was like, gonna go home for Easter. My mom still went to church and I went to church to go with her. I was still drunk. I was like getting a hangover while I was at church. And I don't know. I just like anyone who knows about church, so funny. I went to the altar. Like they had an altar call, which is where you go to the front and pray and get people to pray for you. And I just like said, I need to stop drinking.
Mm.
Like this man, I didn't know. I didn't go to this church. I wasn't a place I was familiar with. And the pastor or whoever came to the front and they're like, what do you need? You know, like, how can I pray for you or whatever? And I just start, I'm like 19 years old or whatever. I was 20. I'm like, I need to stop drinking. It's
Mm.
so bizarre, like
Yeah.
to me now to think about all of it. Yeah.
Mm.
So I made a decision to, yeah, not drink alcohol
From
anymore.
that moment. I love
Yeah.
that. Mm.
Hmm. And I went back to San Diego. My roommate lived in Northern California, so I had driven because I lived in LA, and then I picked her up from the airport. She's like, "Oh, how was your weekend?" And I was like, "It was good. I went to church." She's like, "Me too." And I was like, "Well, I kind of like really went to church." And she's like, "Me too. I really went to church." And I was like, "But I really went to church." And she's like, "What are you saying?" And I was like, "I don't think I'm going to drink anymore."
Mm.
And she's like, "Yeah, we were like, it was a lot. Like, we need to take a break." You know, she was like also really kind of with it. And yeah, from that moment, I felt like different. And I knew I needed to figure shit out and find my way. And I had no idea what any of that meant.
You just knew you had to move in a different direction.
Yeah, I didn't know, like, I'm embarking on a healing journey that's going to take me 30 years. Like,
Yeah.
I just, I couldn't live the way I was living anymore.
Mm.
And I remember there was this moment, it's really tender, but my roommate and I were standing out on our porch, and I don't remember if this was before or after, I think it was after. And she said, "Why don't you stand up straight?" And because I've always had kind of bad posture. Even my mom, who like didn't care about anything, she's like, "You need to stand up straight. Do I need a brace?" Like I've just always had bad posture. And she's like, "You need to stand up straight, or why don't you stand up straight?" And I turned and I said, I don't deserve to." And she looked at me and I was like, "Ooh, I think that's not the right answer." Like, or like I'm saying something that's not that there's like a lot there, a lot of pain there. Um, mm.
Yeah. Did you notice in that moment, like, oh, wow, I said that
Yeah,
was something?
yeah, I did because it stuck
Mm.
with me. Like I was really young, and I'm like, I still think about it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I was like, huh, it's indicative of where my self-esteem is. I don't even believe I get to put my shoulders back or like hold my
Yeah.
head up high. It's like something's wrong with me.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I don't want it to be like this. And so some people go to AA, or go to like programs. I didn't. I kind of tried that and it just didn't resonate for me. Everyone seemed much older and it was hard for me to relate to. So I went to church and I am not a person who goes to church anymore. I haven't been for like 10 years. But for the first 20 years of my journey, my healing journey, a lot of that was around my faith. And I've been thinking about it lately that like Jesus was my life coach.
Yeah.
And how I think of it now, and I don't want to ever offend anybody, but for me, I was doing all this deep dive work with God guiding me, like asking me questions and helping me heal from the the pain, like experiencing love and just learning that I was worthy and good and lovable. So that like self-love piece was so foundational for me.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
When you say that, like, God asked you questions, was that guided more through like the religion or your personal relationship with God? Like, how did that unfold for you?
A lot with the Bible. So I would like read something, some text, and then I would ask myself questions about it. What does that mean? How does that relate to me? If I believe this, like kind of like life coach, if I believe this to be true, how would I act? And yeah, I just had a very intense relationship with that scripture, with that, religious text, and spent lots and lots of time alone reading the Bible and then thinking about it and journaling.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it could be like I know other people in my life who didn't have this experience with religion and they spent a lot of time reading self-help books and
Hmm.
having pretty similar experiences in that health healing journey. And so I don't want to ever discount somebody's religious experience because I think anytime we're guided by some sort of spirit or some sort of spiritual belief system, it's a it's a conversation with love. It's a conversation with goodness, values. Who are you? I think there's so much value to it. It can be super hurtful and eventually became hurtful to me. And I didn't want to stay uh, in that religious tradition anymore. But yeah, that was like the beginning for me. And really, I guess like I didn't have a therapist or anything. I just got really into my faith and yeah, spent a lot of time doing that reflective work
Mm.
and trying to figure out God's love.
Yeah. Did you said it in the when you decided, you did the altar call.
Hmm.
It's like you didn't really know what that meant.
No, I
Like,
didn't even know that. Like now I have language like buffering, right? That I was using drugs and alcohol to create distance and like numb from the pain. I just knew that that was a block that
mm,
was preventing me from healing. I just knew that was the problem.
yeah.
That circumstance was not going to work anymore. I remember um come that was like on April 15th, and then I came home and I was like I'm not going to smoke weed any. I mean I'm still going to smoke weed. Like I was like I'm just going to stop drinking. And there was this Bible verse that said the substance belongs to Christ. And I have no idea what it meant. But I would like interpret the Bible in any way that like worked for me. So it's not necessarily good. But I was like, oh, the substance, the marijuana belongs to Christ. Like I can't use do it anymore. So stupid.
I love it.
But I remember because 420 is like a big stoner time. Like everyone gets high on 420. And that was the last time I smoked weed at that point in my life. And And then I was like, wow, okay, I am not drinking anymore. I'm not doing drugs.
Mm,
I live in San Diego. None of these people are my friends. I just was so lost and did not know how to make sense of my life. So I came home. I came home for the summer. I finished that semester and my roommate, there wasn't that many weeks left. And, she kind of was like, I don't know what her deal was, but I was just in a totally different headspace. We were not what we had established our friendship around was no longer true for me. Just
mm,
partying and being like, we had this nickname like the Bat Girls. Like I was we were a scene, and I was just done with it
mm.
and stopped going to kegers and whatever all the things. Um, yeah, I tried to find a church. Almost got into a cult. That was kind of weird. And
Such a
then
tender time.
I was so vulnerable and I went to this thing and they like invited me to lunch and invited me to dinner and it was amazing. And I it was like, I talked to my mom that night on the phone and she was like, I think I've heard of that. I think it might not be good. And then I talked to this other friend that I had grown up with and she's like, that is a cult. And I was like, oh, shoot. So it's really saved because I was so vulnerable. I would easily have gone there. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So then when you started reading and attending church and practicing that way, did you notice like how did you keep going? And how did you notice like, oh, this is good for me or this is helpful? Because you make a decision and you're like, I have no idea what does that even mean? What does it even look like? You don't even have context for that. But then you start going down this path. Like, how do you keep going and know
Hmm.
that it's taking you somewhere that you want to go?
Well, I slowly started to feel like a little bit more present in my life and could start to look around and ask questions like, are these my friends? Do these people care about me? Do, you know, is this the right place for me right now? Am I able to take care of myself? Do I need more support? And it became pretty obvious that like I was going to have to deal with the abandonment from my father. That was like probably the most pressing thing because he my parents divorced when I was five, almost five, like I was like 4.5. And then my mom left. We lived in a domestic violence shelter because she couldn't figure out how to get out. And then she found a little house and then he was around ish for the next couple of years till I was about 8. Like I'd see him every once in a while and he was a big drug addict and among other things. He's a whole story. And then he left because he was being chased by the FBI. So he fled like the law. So that meant fleeing his family. And then I never saw him again till I was 30 years old. So he was just gone from 8 to 30. I no, not a sound from him that whole time.
Wow.
So I didn't know how to make sense of it.
Sure.
And no adult talked to me about it. No one gave me language, no narrative. I remember in high school saying like, people were like, "Where's your dad?" And sometimes I'd be like, "Well, he's dead." I always say he's dead, and they'd be like,
Mhm.
"How'd he die?" And I'd be like, let's think about that." Like I didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Just like, stop
"Cancer,"
asking me. He's dead.
because he wasn't dead. I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like kind of the beginning of like the thing I took a look at, and it took a. I mean, I'm still healing from that abandonment, but um, yeah, just kind of like saying it out loud, starting with that honesty piece. Like, what happened to you? What
Mm.
what's your story? What's the pain? Let's name it.
Yeah. It sounds like you making that decision, it was like an act of self love. Maybe you didn't recognize it at the time, but seeing like that maybe there's a different path for me.
Hmm.
There's something there. But then that opened you up to like more love and reflection and
Yeah.
awareness
Well, you
and
give up the
decisions.
thing. I think you give up the thing. Like sometimes I'll think of like, okay, so you stop yelling at your kids, right? You say, I'm never going to do that again, right? Maybe you relapse or whatever.
Yeah.
But then you have to deal with the reason you were yelling or like what do you do instead? I do think abstinence can be really helpful. We've talked about this, but like me saying I'm not going to do drugs and alcohol, those are like my best buffers at the time
Right.
to avoid pain. So the minute you stop having the thing that the numbing or the avoidance, you're faced with what is the pain?
Right.
And that that work is what everyone's like, well, how do you do it? You're like, well, just start by saying what it is, right? Like radical honesty and radical listening to yourself.
Mm.
And this next episode is radical acceptance. And it's like, okay, so my story, and Dan Siegel he talks about coherent narrative. Like I needed to create a narrative that explained myself to me.
Yeah.
Like what happened to me? So I was 8 years old. Like, okay, and then you don't have a dad. So what does that mean? How how has that hurt you? And just
Hmm.
giving room to talk about it.
Yeah. So then, is that what you started to do? Like, what were your first, you created like a narrative for yourself where you started to make sense of all that you didn't even have language for, maybe, or foundation for, like, what happened to
Mm-hmm.
you? Is that what
Mm-hmm.
you kind of started to do in your mind?
Yeah, I'm really trying to remember what it all looked like. It was real clunky. That early healing, it's not it's not clean. Like it's so clean now to me that it's hard to go back to that person. I think I found a lot of safety and belonging in church, and I found a place where I could feel loved and accepted without drugs and alcohol and be in a community that was really encouraging and met a lot of needs that weren't in ways that hurt me. So I kind of created a better foundation, like a better identity for myself that created enough safety to
Mm.
start to explore some of these things. Then in that sobriety, because I got married young, well, let me go back. So actually, I was home that year. That was my junior year. And then my senior year, I went away to school again and of college. And that's when I started dealing with the sexual abuse stuff. Like I went to a group that was like for sexual abuse survivors. And I just took a big chance. I was just like, I never ever talked about it with anybody, like ever. And then I just went in this room and it was like really healing, like such a huge gift. And then I was getting married and Kevin and I did not have sex before we were married. So I was going to have sex after this. That was the other thing in abstinence. I also stopped having sex. So I didn't have sex, I didn't do drugs, and I didn't do alcohol. And so I had a boyfriend, we didn't have sex, and then we were going to wait till we were get married, right? Very good religious girl. But then I'm like, I'm going to get married. I have to walk myself down the aisle or figure out what I'm going to do about the dad piece because he's not there. And I have to figure out the sex piece because I'm going to get start having sex again. And
Right.
so because of the abstinence, then when I was like put into or the decisions, then I was like, well, I've got to deal with this. I've got to figure out how do I walk myself down the aisle? Does my brother do it? What does that even look like? Does my mom do it? Is she really a dad? Did she take that role? That
Mm-hmm.
was so painful to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I had to walk myself down.
That's beautiful. It's kind of a metaphor for what you were doing for yourself
Yeah.
that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess I just, there's then I didn't know like in this conversation, do we go back and keep going through? But I just feel like that period of time from that little moment in 95, I'm alive in 95, April of 95, and then I was married in September of 97.
Ah.
So it was only 2.5 years ish because
Mm-hmm.
it all happened so fast. I mean, the reason why I got married young and all that was probably trauma response. Like there's like shit there. There's
Yeah.
religious stuff. There's all sorts of, we could unpack that decision separately. But in that 2.5 years, I did so much work to like become a person who could get married.
Right.
And we're still married. So I guess it worked out.
Yeah. But you were
Uh-huh.
like making intentional decisions about your life that
Mhm.
you maybe felt decent about, you know?
Was definitely making decisions that felt safe. I think I
Mm-hmm.
was just really seeking reliability, predictability, safety, an identity outside of my family. Like
Yeah.
now I can look at those decisions and really be clear about them. I mean, at that time in my community, people were getting married right out of college. It was normal. So it didn't seem that strange in the world I was in. Outside of that world, it does seem really strange. And I don't know if I needed more time to grow and develop outside of my relationship with Kevin,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, but because I'm so grateful for the decision to marry him because he was a very solid bloke, right? He's very reliable, good fella. He's just so kind,
Yeah.
just like a metronome, he's just great. It gave me this foundation that I could then spend the next 10 years really deep healing because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my needs were met. And if I was having a hard time or going through stuff, he did not know at all what to do with the mess of me at all, but he would just be kind about it and just give space and be like, that's fine. Don't go to work today. Whatever you need. Like he just really gracious about it. I got lucky in that I married someone who's really was really good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I did that. I don't know why or how or if that was God or my deep intuition or what.
Yeah. So you found a couple safe places like your church,
Hmm.
Kevin, that allowed for that healing to take place. Because
Yeah, I think
before, maybe there just wasn't enough safety to even do that.
no, not at all. Because it was my own parents and, my own family. And there was just I mean, the amount of chaos happening in my family is insanity. And
Yeah.
it's not, those aren't my stories to tell, but they impacted me in such a way that I was just abandoned again and again and again.
Mm.
Yeah, by the adults. So I think I found adults, right? I found figures that could create that safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about like for people who are our age, or have moms already, and they're like, well, now what? There was a period of time when I was a stay-at-home mom and uh, Sawyer was going to kindergarten. Oh, no, no, no. I'm sorry. He was in kinder. He was going to first. And I was starting to anticipate the next year when they were both going to be at school every day for 6 hours. And I was like, what am I going to do with 30 hours? What am I going to, I was really scared about it. And around that time, beginning of kindergarten with Sawyer, I did this weird thing. I'm just weird. I did this sabbatical or something. It was a 40 days of Sabbath, I called it. So it was 40 days of silence and 40 days of rest. And I like took a vow of silence, which is so bizarre to be a mom with like two little kids. And I'm like, I'm going to take a vow of silence for the next 40 days. Who does this? I don't know. But anyway, I did. And what that looked like was I would spend 2 to 3 hours a day in silence alone meditating, journaling, reading books that I had been led to read, and just really healing from some deep, deep wounds around infertility, because then that happened. And which is not adverse childhood, that's just life, right? Then that happened. And then more wounds around my dad
Mm.
at that time. And that was when this concept of the calm mama process was birthed, was in that. It was just a really quiet space. And I think we don't realize that we could create boundaries for ourselves if we want to prioritize healing and we want to prioritize our well-being, that we can, even if we have little kids. I was at that time not decorating my house or working out a lot. I wasn't, I just focused on the bare minimums everywhere else. And I just dedicated this time to that process. And the silence was silent during that time till I picked up the kids. And I was present, like went to the park and did all the things, talked to the moms. But the other part of the silence was I didn't speak to anyone about anything I was going through during that time. So I did 40 days of no reflection outside of myself because I didn't want to have any other feedback or influence.
Hmm.
And so that journal is insane, like that period of time.
Wow.
Yeah. And then 2019, I did another deep, deep dive around depression, around anxiety, identity. That lasted a couple of years. So that's what I guess I mean. It's like some I can look back at these periods of time. Like obviously when I was waiting for the boys to come and we were dealing with infertility, it was such a huge identity crisis because I did not know what to make. I didn't know how to make sense of what I wanted and not to have that block and just so unclear. It just brought up so much like old wounds around not being good enough. And yeah, so that was awful. And my poor friends, they'd be so scared to tell me they were pregnant.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
They'd be like,
So
oh,
hard.
I gotta tell you something. And they feel like so I felt so awful that they had to feel so awful to tell me. But then when they told me, I felt so awful that it was
Right.
like true.
Oh.
Yeah. It was just a disaster. So I just have had so many times when I get like, you're just like, I have to deal with this because it's right here in front of me.
Hmm. Yeah. So how do you like what do you think it is for people? Do you think it is like a grace thing, like something that just an act of God that like initiates you into some kind of healing, or do you think it's a decision or
I think we experience discomfort, like behaviors we don't like or circumstances that we've got ourselves into that we're not sure if we want anymore, like a marriage or a job or, a neighborhood or, a pattern with your in laws or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And then that's there, right? The pain is present and the pain could be rooted in the past, maybe some unresolved pain that led you here, or it could be just the truth of something that you need to maybe address. And it's an invitation to healing. It's an invitation to a dive in and exploration. I don't think we know the answer. We don't know yet what will happen.
Right. You don't know what you're going to find on your dive and what you're going to do with
No,
it or how long you might be down there.
right? Or like, are you going to come out of it and quit your job or move or get divorced? Or are you going to, you cannot have a detached outcome to it. It's like kind of an exploration. And I think you don't have to go to every healing party you're invited to.
That's true.
Like sometimes you don't,
Mhm.
yeah, like, my marriage was really, really painful for a long time. And I was just like, I'm not even remotely touching this. Like there was just no capacity for it. And
Mm,
I had no real belief that it would improve. It was not possible. I was just like, I don't know. I didn't figure that out till later. I
yeah.
was like, I'm just gonna raise these kids. That's what I was thinking at the time. I was like, I don't know. I just make the money and be decent and we'll be fine and like whatever. I was really unhappy, I think, and I blame my marriage in some ways.
Yeah.
Whenever the itchiness comes, typically I'm like, well, let's explore this.
Mm, hmm.
I'm willing to do it because the what's on the other side is always so much better than the pain.
Yeah. Now you've become an experienced diver.
Yeah, I lead exhibitions
Yes.
now. I'm like, I can certify you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, no, I'm really good at this trauma diving thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You're like, you'll be fine. It's
Yeah, you'll be
okay.
fine. I
We'll
totally,
go.
yeah, I've done this before. It's fine. We've got you. Yeah, I was
Mm,
thinking of the other time that I had to deep dive in fertility. It's almost like every 5 years when Lincoln was so aggressive. Like that's really when I was aggressive and he because of him. And that was such intense work to figure out why I was so reactive and coming to like understand that that had a lot to do with my own trauma response and that
mhm.
commitment I made to a 12-year-old girl that no one would ever hurt them.
Mm,
Then I had a 4-year-old who was hurting me. And I was like, oh, no, you didn't. I mean, I just was in such a defensive, like, no one hurts me, like, survivor. Yeah, that's where my aggression was coming from. And I had to reframe it like, I'm not a victim of my child. I'm not actually being abused by him. This is not an abusive relationship. Like, I had convinced myself that I was in danger in this relationship with my son.
hmm.
And I had to heal that in order to be not reactive.
Yeah.
So I guess like the behavior shows up, I don't like it, and I'm uncomfortable or there's pain there, and then I go like, well, let's figure it out. I'm willing to do that. Like I need to stop drinking thing at the altar. That moment is the same moment I've done many, many, many times. The like this piece of my world is not working anymore, and I want to figure out another way to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always wonder if these are helpful, but I think it adds context to some of the things that I teach.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope.
Hopefully, people can find little parts of themselves, in your story, or at least can relate to aspects of it.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think it would be helpful probably to go back and talk about like the other painful times, as the sessions go by. Because yeah, it's like that first one was really profound in like I was so desperate, right? I was in a bad, bad place and I made this big decision and it was but then the work of that was like kind of messy. I don't know if I really found I think I swapped out some stuff for some other stuff, but it was like better. Like so sometimes we have these strategies that are not good and then we do something different.
Right.
It's less harm, but it might not be whole.
Sure. Yeah. I'd also be interested to know, like, what progress you saw in yourself. Like, how did you keep going? Or, like, how do you gain confidence that, like, this is working or this is helping me? And,
Yeah,
like to be willing to go scuba diving again or trauma
right.
diving.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of evidence that things are working. Like I remember calling my roommate that summer, and her mom said, "Oh, she's in Yosemite on a camping trip." And I remember getting off the phone thinking, That's so, I want to go to Yosemite on a camping trip. Like, very much like my life is not great. It doesn't work out for me. And then I was like sad. And then I went to this church, and it was the first time I'd ever been there. And they were like, this weekend, the college group is going to Yosemite. And then I was like, oh, I want to go there. And I just called on the phone number and I said, can I go? And then they said, yes, it's $99. And I said, well, I don't have $99, but I want to go, which is like, now I like cringe to think about it. And they were like, okay, we'll find the money. And I was like, okay. And then I did this very transformative life experience and hiked Half Dome. And I just realized, oh, I can have a life. Like, there's better stuff out there than wandering Mexico alone, drunk in this tiny white lace thing I was wearing. I mean, like, I just, no, I don't, there's better stuff. And then I experienced that better stuff and it was better. And so I was like, well, I want more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that kernel that you're looking for is like the thing you want is available on the other side of this pain. You have to stop buffering and go look for it and then take some action to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You made some decisions for yourself, kind of saw yourself from a, like you said, like radical honesty, like you saw yourself from a little bit more clear lens.
Mm-hmm. And like even letting my desire, like, I want that, then seeing it and being like, oh, that's for me. I get that. Like, I just that alone, like that self esteem piece to like be hungry, want it, go get it, take it.
Yeah.
That's miraculous. That's a huge, huge change. And then to have that experience be so profound, and then like, oh, okay, I'm all right. This is working.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
Well, thanks for listening.
It's so great. I love it.
Good.
Thank you.
I have like a vulnerability hangover. I'm going to go. All right. I love you.
Love you too.
Hey, Mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.